Welcome back, everyone, to Behind the Arc Basketball. With the NBA draft approaching this week, I'm going to talk about my final NBA mock draft to my first round predictions for picks number 11 through 20. This video is part 2 of a 3-part video, so after watching my second video of picks number 11 through 20, make sure to go on over to my first video with picks number 1 through 10 and my third video with picks number 21 through 30. I'll put the links to the 2 other videos down in the description below. So without any further ado, we will start here with the 11th overall pick for my prediction, my 2020 NBA mock draft prediction video. The San Antonio Spurs on the clock at number 11. I predict that they will take Patrick Williams, small forward of the Florida State Seminoles. Williams is one of the youngest prospects in this draft. He turned age 19 back in August. Williams is young and he's a developing player as well with a ton of future potential. As his numbers aren't off the charts because he played on the Florida State team with a deep rotation last season, but when called upon, Patrick Williams did basically just about everything for the Seminoles. He averaged 9.2 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game, 1 block per game, and 1 steal per game, while shooting the ball over 45% from the floor and over 83% at the free throw line. Knocking down threes, that's going to be a work in progress here throughout his career for Patrick Williams, since he only shot the ball at 32% in his freshman season from behind the arc. But Williams, what he has to offer here is a lot defensively. He has tremendous athleticism, and I just don't see Williams here as somebody that will be able to get a lot of big minutes right off the bat. I think that he's going to have to do a ton of developing throughout his time, but he sure has plenty of upside, and he can eventually help lead the Spurs defense in the future, which ranked 25th this season in points allowed. And now with DeMar DeRozan in trade rumor talks, the Spurs need more depth in their roster since Keldon Johnson is the only other small forward listed on their roster. I predict that the Spurs will take Patrick Williams here, and they'll have to build him up throughout his career, but I predict that they're going to take him at number 11. Now at number 12. The Sacramento Kings on the clock, that's where I predict that they're going to take sharpshooter Aaron Nesmith, small forward from the Vanderbilt Commodores. Nesmith played 14 games in which he was on fire shooting from the floor until a right foot injury ended the season. He averaged 23 points per game, shot the ball at an insane clip at 52.2% from three-point range. The worry for me, though, I have about Nesmith here is the cupcake competition that he was able to light it up against from the perimeter with that small sample size. When playing for Vanderbilt last season, he went 8-6 for the Commodores for their team record, as he only played against one power conference team, which happened to be the Auburn Tigers. He had multiple 20-point games. He had two games which he scored 34 points in, and then he also made 7 3-point shots in 3 separate games against Southeast Missouri State, the Richmond Spiders, and UNC Wilmington, as Nesmith also knocked down 8 3-point shots against SMU. If he can build off of those numbers of what he was doing back in the sophomore season at Vanderbilt and take his offense to this elite NBA level that he could possibly do, then Nesmith, he's going to be a scoring machine here in the NBA. He can help out Sacramento have an even deeper roster here with their offense with a group of rising guards that they have on their roster. As Nesmith, he's a sharp-shooting perimeter threat. He can be able to help out the Kings' offense. And Sacramento, they finished 22nd last season in scoring here, as I've got Aaron Nesmith going to the Kings at number 12. Now at number 13, the New Orleans Pelicans on the clock here. That's where I predict that they're going to take shooting guard Tyrese Maxey from the Kentucky Wildcats. For the second year in a row, I predict that a Kentucky product here will be taken at number 13 in the draft. Maxey averaged 14 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, and 3.2 assists per game during his freshman season at Kentucky. The year prior to Maxey, Tyler Hero was also taken at number 13 overall in the draft, and he averaged 14 points per game as well during his freshman season. Maxey could possibly be the next hidden star here, as he has a high ceiling, as he played one season with Kentucky with multiple 5- and 4-star recruits on the roster, and he could possibly be the next hidden star here, rookie of the year riser possibly for Tyrese Maxey for this season from Kentucky draft pick here, that he plays with so much talent, but the stats are eye-popping because everybody contributes at Kentucky and everybody shares the basketball. During his time for the Wildcats, Maxey, he was clutch. He came through during some of the biggest moments last season for Kentucky, as he had 26 points in the season opener against Michigan State. Maxey also scored a career-high 27 points against Louisville with a clutch shot in overtime to put the game away. And he's versatile. He stepped up to play point guard when Ashton Hagans missed last season's game against Florida back in March. Maxey was able to fill in. He tallied 7 assists during that game as well, as they were able to come back as they were down by almost like 20 points or so in that game. They had a massive comeback against Florida, able to win it in that game back in March. During last season, though, Maxey, he did, however, have some struggles with his consistency in some of those games, but down the stretch, he happened to improve as he built confidence towards the end of last season. Maxey can score basically from anywhere in the court. One of the things I love about him is that he is not afraid to take the tough shots, as he came through clutch during his freshman season, and he just finishes well through contact as well, plays with a lot of toughness. One thing that he's going to need to improve is his three-point shooting as a shooting guard, but he's still young at 20 years old, has a ton of upside for Maxey. And the Pelicans, what they need to have on their roster here is that they need to have help with their bench scoring. And Maxey, he isn't afraid to take the big shots, and New Orleans needs a guard like Maxey, I feel like, in the future here to eventually place J.J. Redick or Jrue Holiday down the road, as Maxey could help out the Pelicans if he keeps on taking the appropriate steps up in the right direction to build up his NBA career here. I predict that Tyrese Maxey will land to the Pelicans at number 13. Now at number 14, the Boston Celtics on the clock. That's where I predict the Celtics will take at 14, Saddiq Bey, small forward from the Villanova Wildcats. As Bey doubled his points average at Villanova, making the jump from his freshman season over to his sophomore season. Back in 2018-19, Bey averaged 8.2 points per game, but in his sophomore season, last season, he averaged 16.1 points per game and led the Wildcats in scoring. He had multiple games in which he made at least 4 3-point shots in and scored 20 or more points, as Bey led the Big East last season in 3-point shooting percentage, knocking down 45% of his shots from behind the arc, as he is admired because of his versatility. He is a two-way player that can defend multiple positions, and he can be clutch for the Celtics as well, I feel like, as Saddiq Bey can light it up from 3-point range and have an impact role as a role player here right from the start for the Celtics, as that's what Boston lacked last season. They lacked bench scoring production from their second unit this season, as Saddiq Bey should be able to provide that spark right off the bench when called upon by Brad Stevens. The Celtics missed a couple pieces that prevented them last season from making the NBA Finals. Of course, the biggest one was a veteran big to lead the team with low post scoring, but also a bench option that can be a consistent scoring option on the roster here as well, and that's where I think that Saddiq Bey can help out the Celtics here if they take him at number 14, help out the Celtics bench. That's where I like Saddiq Bey at number 14. Now at number 15, so we're halfway through the draft now. On the clock happens to be the Orlando Magic. That's where I predict that they're going to take a point guard, Kira Lewis Jr. from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Kira Lewis Jr., he's 6'3", 165 pounds, but he is one of the fastest players here in this NBA draft. He averaged 18.5 points per game, 5.2 assists per game for Alabama this past season while playing for the number 3 scoring attack in college basketball under head coach Nate Oates. As Lewis, he is built to run the floor. He will not be a problem offensively, as he was consistent for the most part of last season, making shots as he shot the ball just under 46% from the floor. He had a couple of games in which he did struggle shooting, however, but my main concern here is that Lewis didn't have that opportunity to play against any standout defenses in college last season, as the SEC happened to not really be a strong conference last season defensively compared to other conferences, like with teams like Kansas and Baylor in the Big 12 or the Virginia Cavaliers in the ACC, so he didn't really get to play that many tough defenses last year in college compared to if Alabama was in another conference. But the Magic had a great season with their defense last season. They finished 5th in the NBA in points allowed with their defense for Orlando, but where I feel like the Magic needs to address that spot would happen to be a scoring point guard, with DJ Augustine as a free agent this offseason. That would leave Markelle Fultz as the only other point guard on the roster, and the Magic were 24th last season in points scored. And I feel like Orlando could use that boost offensively by selecting Kira Lewis Jr. here in the draft. That's where I have him going to the Magic at number 15. Now at number 16. The Portland Trailblazers on the clock here at 16. That's where I predict power forward Precious Achiuwa going over to Portland. As Achiuwa was selected to the American Athletic Conference Player of the Year in 2020, he's coming off a phenomenal freshman season, which he averaged a double-double, 15.8 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game. He was the leading rebounder in the American, and also just under 2 blocks per game. Achiuwa had 20 double-doubles. He posted a career-high 22 rebounds, along with 22 points against Tulane, and he is a strong and physical defender, solid rebounder. He did, however, have inconsistencies as a shooter. He did have sharp performances, like when he shot the ball 8 for 9 from the floor against Jackson State. That's a mid-major program where against another team or so, like one of the top teams in the conference from the American, where he struggled shooting, was 1 for 9 when he shot the ball against the Houston Cougars. Achiuwa's going to have to build up his free throw shooting as well to translate over to the NBA level. He shot the ball at a low 60% last season at the free throw line while at Memphis, but he's still got a lot of time to develop that. The Blazers ranked 6th in the NBA in points scored, but are only 26th in the NBA when it comes to defense, as Portland also ranks 27th in the NBA in most rebounds allowed last season per game to their opponents. That's where I feel like Precious Achiuwa will be a solid pickup here to help out Portland on the boards, in the post, and on the defensive side of the floor here as well. And I feel like Portland will have to use that roster depth here at the power forward, since Carmelo Anthony, Wenyen Gabriel, and Caleb Swanigan, all these players are going over to free agency. That's where I like Precious Achiuwa going over to the Blazers at number 16. Now at number 17, second time of the clock here in this draft, going out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's where I predict that their second pick here, number 17, will go out to Josh Green, shooting guard of the Arizona Wildcats, as this pick was acquired via the Brooklyn Nets. So Minnesota here, if they select Josh Green, as he averaged 12 points per game for Arizona this past season. He didn't have a strong shooting, though, shooting the basketball for Arizona, but he can offer a lot defensively, as he had 9 games with 3 steals, and he also had 3 games with 4 steals. Green, however, did struggle shooting during the beginning and middle of last season at times. However, there's a lot to be admired, though, as he improved tremendously towards the end of last season. During the final 5 games of last season, he went 9 for 13 from the perimeter. It's not a high volume usage of shots here from 3-point attempts from Green, but it's an encouraging sign here of Josh Green's improvement from 3-point range, as Minnesota happened to rank 28th in the NBA in points allowed this season. Also, they rank 28th in 3-point shooting. As the T-Wolves, they can feel like, I think they can use another defender here in Josh Green and able to build him up to be a 3-ball shooter as well throughout his career. That's where I like him at number 17. Now at number 18, this one goes out to the Dallas Mavericks. I predict that they're going to pick center Aleksej Pokusevski here, as Pokusevski, 18-year-old Serbian center, 7 feet tall. I predict that he's going to go to the Mavericks, as Pokusevski averaged 10.8 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, and just over 3 assists per game, averaging just over 23 minutes per game while playing 11 games last season for the Olympiakos B team out of Greece. Now, the 11 games provide a smaller sample size here of basketball while played in Greece, and that was due to a knee injury which happened to force him to miss 3 months. But Pokusevski is the youngest player in this year's NBA draft class. He will not turn the age of 19 until December 26th. And he is viewed by scouts as an effective rebounder. He can help out on the glass. Despite his 7-foot height, he can also connect on 3-point shots as well, off of screens, off the dribble, and he is also a great decision maker as well as a passing center as well. So his room of improvement, it includes his inside and outside shooting, as the Mavericks have done a spectacular job in the past year building their franchise around players here, international prospects like they have done with Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, Maxi Kleber, and Boban. All these international prospects on their team, and why not take a shot here at Pokusevski into the draft, as he's going to have to need building up to do and development here throughout his career, but he'll mostly start off with a G League, as he is just really skinny for his height. He's 7 feet tall, but he only weighs 195 pounds, and with the injury concerns of Porzingis here, I feel like Pokusevski, if he's able to learn under Porzingis and then develop his game for the future here, and both of these players got some similarities too between Porzingis and Pokusevski, and one of those similarities is not being able, or not being afraid to attempt 3-point shots. Both of these players being 7-footers, and that's where I predict Another one of these players here, international prospect Pokusevski, going over to the Dallas Mavericks at number 18. Now at number 19 in the draft happens to be the Brooklyn Nets. They're on the clock. That's where I predict that they're going to take Jaden McDaniels, power forward from the Washington Huskies. As McDaniels played his freshman season at Washington, he averaged 13 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, and 1.4 blocks per game. He is known best for his defensive capabilities with his size. He's a solid rebounder. He had a couple big rebounding games for the Huskies last season. His offense, however, still a work in progress. He shot about 40.5% from the floor and just under 34% from behind the arc, so he's going to have to improve his shooting. But also, he did happen to knock down quite a bit of tough shots from the perimeter as a 6'10" power forward. As McDaniels, he happened to struggle with turnovers in college, but he does happen to need a lot of developing, but he has a ton of upside as well since he's only 20 years old. The Nets are pretty much set for ball handlers for the season on their team, but Brooklyn was 24th in the NBA this past season in shooting percentage, 23rd in blocks per game, and that's where McDaniels is able to come in, I feel like, for this team, help him out inside, as the hope here for Brooklyn is able to build up Jaden McDaniels in the future to become a knockdown shooter to help out the Brooklyn Nets in the future. That's where I like him at number 19. Now at number 20 here, the Miami Heat. With their draft pick, I predict that they're going to take Jalen Smith, power forward from the Maryland Terrapins. As Jalen Smith played 2 seasons at Maryland, he had strong improvements from his freshman season over to his sophomore season. Smith this past season, he averaged a double-double, 15.5 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game. He ranked second in the Big Ten in blocks per game with 2.4 blocks per game this past season. As Jalen Smith showed improvement in his shooting this past season, he's also a solid rebounder. He posted 19 double-doubles last season, and he also had a career high 19 rebounds against Northwestern. Jalen Smith also had a career-high point total of 29 points scored against Indiana. He is an effective shot blocker who blocked a career-high 6 block shots against Rutgers. He also shot the ball quite often from the perimeter for a big man, and he can be effective here inside and also outside as well. So Miami could be looking for more inside and rebounding help here, and that's due to Myers Leonard hitting the free agent market this offseason. Basically, Miami's already have a loaded roster here full of shooters on their rosters. They would just add in another big 6'10" threat here with Jalen Smith he can score inside, shoot the 3 ball, and he can also rebound, and he is a beast inside here as well. Jalen Smith converted over 60% of his 2-point shots for the Terrapins. The Miami Heat were 29th last season in the NBA in 2-point shot attempts. They could, I feel like, use Jalen Smith to help provide a more balanced attack there with their inside and outside scoring. That's where I like Jalen Smith to go at number 20 over to the Miami Heat. So that's a wrap here to my second part, my final predictions to my 2020 NBA mock draft video with picks number 11 through 20. Make sure to check out my first and third videos as well with picks number 1 through 10 and picks number 21 through 30. I'll put the links to those 2 videos down in the description below. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe to my channel. Check out all the other great content I have going on here on my channel as well. My play-by-play live streams for college basketball. That will be soon starting right back up on November 25th. So also feel free to stop on by, hang out, and experience my live streams as well here. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, as this is Behind the Arc Basketball.